everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Random Rewatch on the Movie Punditry feed. My name is Mike, and we are here to do what we do. Pull an old movie off the shelf, take a look at it, revisit it, and see if it holds up. So I was going back through the movies that we've done. We've done over 40 films in this series, and it occurred to me that I have never done, in all those films, we have not done a film where the protagonist or the main character of the story is a woman. And we're going to double down and maybe triple down on that this time, because we're doing a film that not only did it define an entire aesthetic in the mid-2000s, but it also has not one, not two, but three really strong female characters at the top of the bill. So whether you are into high fashion or you think a cerulean sweater is just blue, let's go, because we are about to dive into the 2006 classic, The Devil Wears Prada.
Miranda Priestly is the editor-in-chief of Runway.
So you don't read Runway?
No. Not to mention a legend.
And before today, you'd never heard of me?
No. You work a year for her, and you can get a job at any magazine you want.
You have no style or sense of fashion. No. That wasn't a question.
You got a job at a fashion magazine? What was it, a phone interview?
Who is that? Are we doing a before and after piece I don't know about?
In the world of high fashion.
There you are, Emily.
Actually, it's Andy. My name is Andy.
A million girls would kill for this job.
Is there some reason that my coffee isn't here? Did she go to Rwanda for the beans or something?
Where so much is at stake.
I need 10 or 15 skirts.
The boys!
Hello?
The Devil Wears Prada.
So this is really kind of timely also, and maybe this influenced my decision on which film to do at this point, but we've got the long-awaited legacy sequel to this movie, The Devil Wears Prada 2, which is releasing on May 1st, and then we have also Emily Blunt in Disclosure Day, which is releasing in June on the 12th, I believe. So this seems like a really good time to revisit this film, and especially if you haven't seen it in a while, get yourself geared up and ready for the sequel to drop in a couple of weeks. Actually, by the time you hear this, it'll probably be next week. So this film actually originated as a 2003 novel by Lauren Weisberger. Lauren was She was an assistant to Anna Wintour, who is the legendary editor-in-chief of Vogue magazine. She always claims that it's a work of fiction, but the parallels were extremely conspicuous. So even before the book was finished, Carla Hacken, who was the executive vice president of 20th Century Fox, had seen pieces of it, and producers Wendy Finnerman and David Frankel had read the book proposal, and they all decided this was going to be a fantastic film. And so they bought the rights to this book before it was even finished. So again, as I said, even though Lauren had said that this is a complete work of fiction, the parallels to Anna Wintour in this book and Miranda Priestly are too much to ignore. And there were a lot of people who were actually afraid of Anna Wintour and of getting on her wrong side. So everybody approached this very, very carefully. David Frankel would go on to direct the movie, and he thought Miranda was a fantastic villain for the piece. He thought the story was kind of unnecessarily harsh on Miranda, and he saw her as much more of like, the hero of her own story kind of thing. I haven't read the book, but I have read excerpts of the book, and it does come across as kind of mean. It's let's be honest, it's kind of a hit piece. I think that Lauren was not particularly enamored of her experience working in the fashion press, and that kind of comes out in what she's writing. And Frankel wanted to take kind of a different approach to it. Now, Frankel had only directed one feature film. It's called Miami Rhapsody, but he had done a bunch of episodes of Sex and the City and Entourage, and that kind of fits into the wheelhouse of what this movie is. There were 4 screenwriters who worked on this script. It started with Peter Hedges and then Paul Rudnick and Don Roos. It was finally given to Aileen Brosh McKenna, who had done writing on the films Three to Tango and Laws of Attraction. You know, she was young, she was in her 30s, and she was able to kind of strike a balance between making Miranda a little more sympathetic and really fleshing out Andy. The novel was being finished as the screenplay was being written. Originally, McKenna had really toned down Miranda's meanness, but Meryl Streep came in. And Meryl Streep, I don't want to say she was another writer, but she was basically, you know, she came in and a lot of this film, especially with Miranda, is her. And we'll talk about that as we get into kind of the plot analysis on it. But she wanted to kind of bring some of that back in. And so they were able to find a balance between it being too mean and catty and the right tone, or being too soft. And so they found the right tone. Meryl Streep used a couple of sources for her inspiration. I saw an interview where she was talking about how she based Miranda's entire demeanor on Clint Eastwood, because Clint Eastwood, according to her, never raises his voice and is always the most powerful person in the room. And if you watch Miranda, you see she does. She never raises her voice. In fact, sometimes you have to strain to hear her, but that kind of causes everybody to be extra aware of her and paying more attention to her. She also used Don Rickles, his sense of humor and his ability to craft insults. And she's got some zingers in this movie, and we will definitely talk about some of those. McKenna wanted to talk to people in the fashion industry to make the film more authentic, but again, she had to tiptoe around because nobody wanted Anna Wintour to find out that they had been helping out with this production. In fact, they did most of the shooting in New York City, but there were certain places that they were not allowed to shoot because people were afraid of getting Anna Wintour mad. So they couldn't shoot at the Museum of Modern Art. They couldn't shoot at Bryant Park. There were certain people that they wanted to bring in. I mean, this film has a lot of cameos, but there were other people that they wanted to bring in that just refused to do it. As I said, it was shot in New York. Some of it was shot in Paris. The DP on this is Florian Ballhaus. This is really his second big American film. He's a German cinematographer. He had done Flight Plan with Jodie Foster the year before, and then he did this in 2006. And then he would go on to do films like Definitely Maybe, Marley and Me, a couple of the Divergent series movies, and he shot The Devil Wears Prada 2. Music was done by Theodore Shapiro. Got a lot of credits, a lot of smaller movies, but he did do Starsky and Hutch and Dodgeball, so obviously he worked with Ben Stiller quite a bit. There's also a lot of needle drops in this film. But enough of me, let's get into The Devil Wears Prada. So we meet Andrea Sachs, who is an aspiring journalist, just graduated from, I believe it's Northwestern University, and this is Anne Hathaway. She was on a TV show called Get Real that started in 1999, and I think it just went for one season. But she had her major breakout in 2001 with the Disney film The Princess Diaries at the age of, I think she was 19. So she did a couple of, young woman roles in like Nicholas Nickleby and The Cat Returns and Ella Enchanted and The Princess Diaries 2. Her first real, maybe adult role is in Brokeback Mountain in 2005. Fox really wanted Rachel McAdams for this role. She turned it down a couple of times. Kate Hudson was offered the role. They also looked at like Kirsten Dunst, Natalie Portman, Scarlett Johansson. Anne Hathaway really campaigned for this. Apparently she went into Carla Hacken's office where she had like a Zen garden on her desk, one of those little sand and trees and stones things, and wrote "Hire me" in the sand. She did not audition for this role, but they wound up giving it to her based on a couple of conversations and a couple of interviews. So we see that Andy is interviewing at Runway magazine. Runway is obviously an analog for Vogue. She immediately meets Emily Charleston, who is played by Emily Blunt. And we get the feeling right from the top that Emily is going to be a little prickly.
Andrea Sachs?
Yes?
Great. Human resources certainly has an odd sense of humor. Follow me. Okay, so I was Miranda's second assistant, but her first assistant recently got promoted, and so now I'm the first.
Oh, and you're replacing yourself.
Well, I am trying. Miranda sacked the last two girls after only a few weeks. We need to find someone who can survive here. Do you understand?
Yeah, of course. Who's Miranda?
Oh my God, I will pretend you did not just ask me that. She's the editor-in-chief.
Emily Blunt had been in the 2004 film My Summer of Love, but this is really her breakout role, and this is where a lot of people saw her for the first time. Producers had read over 100 actresses for the role of Emily. She had been on the Fox lot auditioning for the movie Aragon, and one of the casting directors, on a kind of a whim, had her read some of the lines into a tape. She decided to do it doing her own natural British accent, which had not been considered prior. They had always envisioned Emily as being an American. It really kind of struck a chord with Frankel. And so when she didn't get Aragon, Frankel called her, brought her in for another audition because the studio insisted on seeing her looked and dressed like the character. They wanted her to go back to playing the character as an American, but she insisted on playing the character as British, and that's what stuck. Anyway, so Emily kind of gives Andy a quick rundown and then makes a couple of snarky comments about her clothing, and then Miranda arrives. Miranda, of course, played by the great Meryl Streep.
I don't understand why it's so difficult to confirm an appointment.
No, I'm so sorry, Miranda. I actually did confirm
Details
last
of
night.
your incompetence do not interest me. Tell Simone I'm not going to prove that girl that she sent me for the Brazilian layout. I asked for clean, athletic, smiling. She sent me dirty, tired, and paunchy. And RSVP, yes, the Michael Kors party. I want the driver to drop me off at 9:30.
Her first film was in 1977 in the film Julia. In 1978, Deer Hunter, where she was nominated for an Oscar in her second film. Manhattan, Kramer versus Kramer, another Academy Award nomination, also The French Lieutenant's Woman. She finally won in 1982 for Sophie's Choice. All in all, Meryl Streep has been nominated for an Academy Award 21 times with 3 wins. She has been nominated by the Screen Actors Guild 20 times with 2 wins. She's been nominated for a BAFTA 15 times with 2 wins. One of the most celebrated and decorated actors of her generation and really any other. A total, as of the recording of this podcast, of 408 acting nominations and 205 wins. And that includes Tony nomination, Grammy nomination, 9 Golden Globes, 4 Emmys, 4 Critics' Choice Awards, and as I said, 2 BAFTAs, 2 SAG Awards, and 3 Oscars. Producers considered Glenn Close, Catherine Zeta-Jones, and Michelle Pfeiffer for the role of Miranda. They almost passed over Meryl Streep, let that soak in, because they thought that she wasn't funny enough. It was her casting that probably softened Anna Wintour's objection to the film. She eventually got paid $4 million for the film, and it was her signing on to do it that got the film greenlit. Meryl Streep also did not like fashion magazines. She pretty famously stayed in character for most of the shoot. Now, Anne Hathaway is very method. In fact, she lost 2 dress sizes during the shoot. But Meryl Streep is, she's a master. And she just decided that it was better to have everybody afraid of her for the entire time of the shoot. Even at the end in Paris, in the scene shooting in the car with Anne Hathaway, she would not have conversation or chit chat and on the waits in between, and it left it very uncomfortable for a young Anne Hathaway to be sitting in the car with Miranda Priestly for hours on end. So we get Miranda's traditional throw the coat in the bag on the assistant's desk, and then she calls in Andy for a personal interview because she doesn't trust Emily.
New York to be a journalist and sent letters out everywhere, and finally got a call from Elias Clark and met with Sherry up at Human Resources, and basically it's this or Auto Universe.
So you don't read Runway?
No?
And before today, you had never heard of me?
No.
And you have no style or sense of fashion
Well, I think that depends on what you're...
No. That wasn't a question.
And then kind of in the middle of Andy really trying to stand up for herself at the end of the interview, we are introduced to the amazing Stanley Tucci as Nigel, who just breezes in and completely steals whatever scene that he is a part of.
You're right. I don't fit in here. I am not skinny or glamorous, and I don't know that much about fashion, but I'm smart. I learn fast, and I will work
All right,
very
I've got the
hard.
exclusive on the Cavalli for Gwyneth. But the problem is, with that huge feathered headdress that she's wearing, she looks like she's working the main stage at the Golden Nugget.
Thank you for your time.
Who is that sad little person? Are we doing a before and after piece I don't know about?
I can't believe this is the first film that we've done with Stanley Tucci. The Tooch. Stanley Tucci's first film in 1985, Prizzi's Honor. You know, I was just thinking about this. That's a good one. We should do Prizzi's Honor. Put it on the list. But yeah, 1985, he played a mafia soldier in Prizzi's Honor. I think I vaguely remember that, actually. And just continually working ever since. Who's That Girl? Fear, Anxiety, and Depression. Men of Respect. Billy Bathgate. Prelude to a Kiss. The Pelican Brief. It Could Happen to You. All the way into films like Captain America, the First Avenger. Hunger Games. Caesar Flickerman. Absolutely the best. Percy Jackson. Transformers. Age of Extinction. Conclave. And upcoming in The Devil Wears Prada too. As well as dozens of television credits and stage credits. The man is just an acting machine. Anyway, so Nigel is, even as a friend to Andy later in the movie, he is just characteristically just mean and catty to her throughout most of their relationship. There's this ongoing joke, and we'll touch on it a little bit later, about Andy being fat. When she protests that later on that she's a size 6, from that point on, he sometimes refers to her as 6. But she does wind up getting the job. And then we have a scene with her out with her boyfriend, Nate, and 2 friends. And this is going to be a common theme throughout the movie. Is we're going to see her work life, and then we're going to see these 4 people out for dinner or socializing, that type of thing. And you get this idea of the dichotomy of Andy's 2 worlds. And at first she's very critical of like the fashion world. Like she laughs at it and thinks it's just silly that these people like think this is important. The friends here are Lily and Doug, who are played by Tracy Toms, probably best known from the movie Rent, and Rich Sommer, probably best known for playing Harry Crane on Mad Men. And her boyfriend is Nate, who is played by Adrian Grenier, who is probably best known for playing Vincent on Entourage. Then we see her in the morning, and she gets a call very early in the morning from Emily that she's got to go, and she's got to pick up Miranda's coffee. She shows up at the office, and there's a lot of chaos going on. But eventually, like, Emily's trying to train her and basically lets her know that her job is to answer the phone, and she needs to be at the desk all the time.
When I answer the phones, the phone must be answered every single time it rings. Calls roll to voicemail, and she gets very upset. If I'm not here, Andrea, you are chained to that desk.
Well, what if I need to...
What? No. One time an assistant left the desk because, she sliced her hand open with a letter opener, and Miranda missed Lagerfeld just before he boarded a 17-hour flight to Australia. She now works at TV Guide.
Nigel just shows up with a pair of shoes for her, Jimmy Choos, I believe. Emily goes off to run an errand, and Miranda calls her in and just gives her a bunch of tasks. And it's funny that the Miranda is calling her Emily. Like, Emily is like the generic name for the assistants, apparently. It's one of these things where Miranda's not going to bother to learn her name. But she gives her like this string of tasks, and she has absolutely no idea what Miranda's talking about. And then she tries to give the message to Emily when Emily gets back, but she messes that up and has incomplete information. So she's sent off to Calvin Klein to go get some skirts, I think. And then she runs some other errands, and the scarves. Miranda's apparently always losing scarves. But then we wind up with her having lunch with Nigel. she decides to take corn chowder for lunch, and Nigel is like, the main ingredient of corn chowder is cellulite, and this is where we have this little conversation with them about her size, and she tries to defend herself a little bit and kind of like, oh, I know you think my fashion choices are hideous, and he just keeps coming back with the zingers on her.
Shoot.
Oh, never mind. I'm sure you had plenty more polyblend where that came from.
Okay. You think my clothes are hideous, I get it. But, I'm not going to be in fashion forever, so I don't really see the point of changing everything about myself just because I have this job.
Yes, that's true. That's really what this multi-billion-dollar industry is all about anyway, isn't it? Inner beauty.
He gets a call, and apparently there is this thing called a run-through where Miranda wants to go, like on the drop of a dime, she wants to go through everything that's going to be in the next issue. So they have to cut lunch short. They have to get up to her office. There's a big panic on all the assistants, one of whom is Rebecca Mader from Lost and Iron Man 3. Rebecca Mader is not the only Iron Man 3 alumni in this movie. And so there's this bit where they're putting together some stuff, and one of the characters, I think it's Rebecca Mader, who like holds up these two belts that are the same color, and she's like, I couldn't decide which one, and Andy kind of laughs at it, and when everybody looks at her, she's like, well, they look the same to me. And Miranda, in her way, kind of unleashes on her with what is probably the most famous monologue in the entire movie about Andy's sweater.
You go to your closet and you select, I don't know, that lumpy blue sweater, for instance, because you're trying to tell the world that you take yourself too seriously to care about what you put on your back. But what you don't know is that that sweater is not just blue, it's not turquoise, it's not lapis, it's actually cerulean. And you're also blithely unaware of the fact that in 2002, Oscar de la Renta did a collection of cerulean gowns. And then I think it was Yves Saint Laurent, wasn't it, who showed cerulean military jackets? I think we need a jacket here. And then cerulean quickly showed up in the collections of 8 different designers. And then it filtered down through the department stores and then trickled on down into some tragic casual corner where you no doubt fished it out of some clearance bin. However, that blue represents millions of dollars and countless jobs. And it's sort of comical how you think that you've made a choice that exempts you from the fashion industry when in fact you're wearing a sweater that was selected for you by the people in this room from a pile of stuff.
So Andy has she's got a lot of disdain for the industry at this point. And then we have this quick little montage of Miranda just like coming in and throwing her coat and her bag on Andy's desk, day after day after day. And Andy running all these errands. There's a lot of montages in this movie. She winds up having dinner with her father. At one point, they're going out to see Chicago. But Miranda calls her in the middle of dinner and is complaining because her flight got canceled. She's in Florida. She's in Miami. And there's a hurricane going on. You can see it out the window. She's like, oh, it's just a little drizzle. And she's just like insisting that Andy like get her on a flight back to New York because her daughter, she has twin daughters, have a school recital or something like that, and she has to get back. And Andy, like, there's this whole sequence of Andy calling multiple people and trying to get her on a flight, or even borrow a private plane, but nobody's going to fly to Miami because there's a hurricane going on. And then we just cut to like the next morning where Miranda has her on the carpet and is talking about how wonderful the recital was, but she doesn't remember it because she wasn't there because Andy had failed her. There's probably the deepest cut that Miranda gives to Andy at this point.
That impressive resume and the big speech about your so-called work ethic. I thought you would be different. I said to myself, go ahead. Take a chance. Hire the smart fat girl. I had hope. My God, I live on it. Anyway, you ended up disappointing me more than any of the other silly girls.
So then she goes to Nigel and, she's kind of complaining about Miranda and how unfair she is, how mean she is, and Nigel's, well, like, just quit. You don't want this job anyway. And she doesn't want to quit. She's like, I don't want to quit. That's not fair. And she's like, I'm trying so hard. And Nigel's like, you're not trying. You come down here and you just kind of complain and you kind of whine about Miranda, but you're not really doing anything to try to fit in. And he kind of lets her have it and kind of tells her what's what.
You have no idea how many legends have walked these halls. And what's worse, you don't care. Because this place, where so many people would die to work, you only deign to work. And you want to know why she doesn't kiss you on the forehead and give you a gold star on your homework at the end of the day. Wake up, sweetheart.
So then she gets the idea that Nigel can help her. And she talks him into doing a makeover. And so they go down to like the quote unquote closet, which is like bigger than like the first floor of my house. And they start picking stuff out. But he's like, I guarantee you nothing in this room is good. Nothing in this closet is going to fit a size 6. And, but he manages to pull some stuff out for her and kind of put her together a little bit. So then she comes into work the next day and she's like all dressed up, and Emily is there with her friend Serena, who had been making fun of Andy all along. And this is, by the way, this is Gisele Bündchen. Obviously, Emily is kind of taken aback by the turn that Andy has taken. And then there's a whole another montage of her doing stuff, but more confidently and less scatterbrained and less chaotically. And this is set to Madonna's Vogue. And so one of the questions that you have to ask yourself is Andy seems to be changing and seems to be ingratiating herself into this fashion culture, and even maybe kind of taking it upon herself a little bit and being like, okay, this is not really so bad. But you have to ask, like, why is she changing? Like, what is her motivation? And this is one of the differences from like the book. So in the book, Andy does change and she does start to dress better, and she does start to, present herself more along the lines of what is expected from her at Runway Magazine. But she does it exclusively just to kind of get through the day and to stop having people talking about her. And she doesn't really fit into it. It's just an affectation. It's just an act that she's putting on. Whereas in the movie, the decision was made that Andy is actually kind of falling into this, and she's starting to see the value of this whole industry on people's lives, their self-esteem. And I think she's starting to maybe feel a little better about herself, or at least she's telling herself that. We'll revisit that at the end. So Annie meets up with her friends again, and now she's got like a bunch of stuff to give out to them because Miranda gets all these things and she doesn't want them all. And so she lets the assistants take them. And so there's stuff that Miranda has that she's, colognes, and she has this like, I don't know, multi-$1,000 bag that she gives to Lily. And Nate is not particularly impressed with this turn that Andy's making.
It's not about utility. An accessory is merely a piece of iconography used to express individual identity.
And it's pretty.
That too.
Yeah, but the thing is, it turns out that there is more to Runway than just fancy purses. Look, here's an essay by Jay McInerney, a piece by Joan Didion.
Even an interview with Christiane Amanpour.
Looks like someone's been drinking the Kool-Aid.
And so we start to see some tension building up between the two of them. We have James Holt, who is a fashion designer. Andy is sent to do an errand and pick something up from him. This is Daniel Sunjata. He had read for, I don't think he had read for, but he had been sent the script for Nigel, and he wasn't really interested in that part. But then he read for Holt and asked if he could read for it in an audition, and that's how we wound up getting that part. Daniel Sunjata, known mainly for the TV series Rescue Me, or at least that was kind of his breakout role. I think he's currently in High Potential. And then we again meet Our friend Simon Baker, I can't believe these words are coming out of my mouth. This is our second Simon Baker movie in a row. So this is Christian Thompson, who is a well-known fashion journalist. He had auditioned by sending a video of himself wearing the jacket that he is wearing in this first scene that we see him in the Holt party scene, which apparently he designed himself. And he is definitely honing right in on Andy. We see a couple days later, there's a preview. James Holt is having a preview, and Miranda comes, and she doesn't like what she sees, so, that's a big problem. And then Andy is tasked with delivering the book to Miranda's house. The book is, it's explained earlier in the film, it's a mock-up of the current issue that gets taken to her house every night, and so she can go through and make notes and whatever. And this is the first time that Andy is doing it. It's been Emily, but I guess Miranda knows Andy enough to have her do it now, so she comes in. We meet her twins, little brats, who trick her into saying, "Oh, it's okay if you come upstairs," which it most definitely is not. We see Miranda kind of arguing with her husband a little bit. Her husband, Stephen, is played by James Naughton. Fun fact, James Naughton used to be a client of mine at one of my jobs. So Miranda calls her into her office the next morning and tells her that there is a new Harry Potter novel coming out, and she wants Andy to get her an advanced copy of it, even though it's not even finished yet. So she wants basically a manuscript, a copy of the manuscript, and then she sends Andy on her way. Andy winds up going to Christian, who's the only person really that she knows in publishing, and kind of talks him into helping. Doesn't take a whole lot, by the way. And he's able to call somebody that he knows, and he gets a copy of the manuscript, and she presents it to Miranda.
One copy. What are my twins going to do with that? Share?
Oh, no, I made 2 copies and had them covered, reset, and bound so that they wouldn't look like manuscripts. This is an extra copy to have in file, just in case.
So now we see that Andy is kind of an ascendancy in Miranda's estimation, and maybe Emily is, not so much. But Andy's finding herself with a lot more authority, or a lot more of Miranda's trust. Anyway, there's a photo shoot, and there's another meeting, and everybody's throwing ideas out at Miranda, and she's dismissing them pretty quickly, along with probably one of the best lines in the whole movie.
Accessories for April.
One thought I had was enamel, bangles, pendants, earrings.
No, we did that 2 years ago. What else?
Well, they're showing a lot of florals right now, so I was thinking I could
Florals?
do a shoot.
For spring. Groundbreaking.
But we thought
The line was written in the script, but the delivery, that is all Meryl Streep. So there's a big benefit at, I don't know if it's at the Med or MoMA, I don't know where it's at, but Emily she's sick, she's got a cold, and so her job is to stand behind Miranda and just kind of let her know everybody who's coming in. So she's got to memorize, like, basically everybody's invited, but she's having problems with it because she's sick. So Andy comes along in order to help out, and we find out that there is this woman, Jacqueline, who is basically Miranda's counterpoint in the French edition of Runway, and they don't like each other. Specifically, Miranda does not like Jacqueline at all, and somebody has invited Jacqueline to this party. I think the publisher actually is the one who has invited her. And so Jacqueline is played by Stephanie Stastak, who is she is the other Iron Man 3 alumni in this movie. But Andy, we see the scene where Andy remembers the ambassador when Emily forgets who it is. And so this is another Andy take a step up, Emily take a step down situation. It's also Nate's birthday, by the way. And so Andy's working at night, but she's got to get out. Once her duties are finished and the dinner starts, she's done. She starts to leave, and she runs into Christian, and Christian's trying to get her to stay by telling her that he had read some of her stuff and he wanted to introduce her to the editor of the New Yorker, and he's trying to get her to stay by, complimenting her talent.
Well, I gotta go.
Are you sure? Because my editor for New York Magazine is inside, and I could introduce you to. You sent over your stuff for me to look at, remember?
Yeah.
All right, I gotta admit, I only read a couple because it was a very, very large packet you sent. But what I did read wasn't half bad. And, I think you have a talent, Andy. He should meet you. Why don't you come in, just for one drink?
And she's kind of tempted, but first she says yes, but then she says no, and then she leaves. But she's really late, and Nate's pissed off at her. So then we see Andy is, again, bringing the book to Miranda's house. And this time she knows exactly what she's doing. She knows where her closet is. She knows where the table is. But Miranda calls her into the other room, and she comes in. And Miranda... So, backstory a little bit. There is this huge Fashion Week event in Paris, and Emily is looking forward to going to it because this is her first year as the first assistant. And, she's thinking about all the people that she's going to meet and all the clothes that she's going to get. And it's like the ultimate event. And she's been starving herself. She hasn't been eating so she doesn't gain any weight. And she's just like, her whole life is basically this. And she is planning to go to Paris this year. In fact, she made a big deal of it when Andy was first hired, telling her all about it. And now in this moment, Miranda has decided that she wants Andy to come and not Emily.
Paris is the most important week of my entire year. I need the best possible team with me. That no longer includes Emily.
Wait, you want me to... No. Miranda, Emily would die. Her whole life is about Paris. She hasn't eaten in weeks. I can't do that, Miranda. I can't.
If you don't go, I'll assume you're not serious about your future at Runway or any other publication.
And so the next day when Miranda comes in, she tosses her coat on Emily's desk instead of Andy's desk. The torch has been passed. And Miranda tells Andy that she has to tell, and she has to be the one who tells Emily about Paris. Emily's out running all these errands, doing things, like really trying to get into Miranda's good graces. And she's walking around in Manhattan, and she's on the phone, and she's got stuff in her arms. And she's talking to Andy, and Andy's trying to tell her, look, we need to talk about something. And she's just not paying attention. She's just going on, and she winds up walking out into the middle of the street and getting hit by a car. Now we're in the... She's okay. She broke her leg. Now we're in the hospital, and Andy goes to visit her and tells her about Paris and that Miranda wants her to come. And obviously Emily is really mad about it. So much so that she starts grabbing food off her lunch tray, like a chocolate pudding, and just starts eating the chocolate pudding while berating Andy.
What really just gets me about this whole thing is that, you're the one who said that you don't really care about this stuff. And you don't really care about fashion. You just want to be a journalist. And what a pile of bollocks.
Emily, I know you're mad. I don't blame you.
Face it, Andy. You sold your soul the day you put on that first pair of Jimmy Choos. I saw it. And do you know what really just kills me about this whole thing? It's the clothes that you're gonna get. I mean, you don't deserve them. You eat carbs.
So there's a gallery opening, and there's all kinds of people there, and Lily is there because Lily is an artist, and she's involved with this. And Andy's there, and so is Christian. And Andy and Christian are having a conversation, and Christian's trying really hard to flirt with Andy, and he winds up kissing her on the cheek, and Lily sees it, and now Lily kind of gets mad at Andy because one, Nate's her friend, and she's worried about what's going on, but also she sees her friend changing, and she calls Andy out on it.
The Andy I know is madly in love with Nate. He's always 5 minutes early and thinks Club Monaco is couture. For the last 16 years, I've known everything about that Andy. But this person, this glamazon who skulks around in corners with some random hot fashion guy, I don't get her.
And Andy winds up telling Nate about the trip to Paris and that she has to go to Paris. And Nate's not particularly happy about it because he sees Andy getting pulled deeper and deeper into this world, and he knows he has nothing to do with it. He knows that he has no part of it, and he misses his girlfriend who had disdain for that world, and now she's part of that world. And in the middle of them arguing about it, and basically in the middle of them breaking up, Miranda calls Andy.
I'm sorry. Just 1 second.
In case you were wondering, the person whose calls you always take, that's the relationship you're in. I hope you two are very happy together.
I mean, that is a hell of a line about the call you take. That's the relationship you're in. I mean, that's just a gut punch. And they're done. And so now we're in Paris, and there's a big fashion show. Christian's there, obviously. So Andy finds Miranda one morning, and she doesn't have her makeup on, and she's seemingly kind of depressed, but she wants to go over some plans, and Miranda deals another one of her classic zingers.
By all means, move at a glacial pace. You know how that thrills me. Okay. So, first of all, we need to move Snoop Dogg to my table.
But your table's full.
Stephen isn't coming.
Oh.
But then we find out that she wants the table arrangements changed. She wants Snoop Dogg to sit at her table, and Andy's like, your table's full. And this is where we find out that Stephen's not coming. This is where we find that Miranda and Stephen are going to have a divorce, and Miranda is obviously feeling kind of a little sorry for herself, but she winds up maybe kind of pulling herself out of it. This is probably the most vulnerable that we will see Miranda at all in this entire story.
Another divorce. Splashed across page 6. Just imagine what they're going to write about me. The Dragon Lady, career obsessed. Snow Queen drives away another Mr. Priestly. Rupert Murdoch should cut me a check for all the papers I sell for him. Anyway, I don't really care what anybody writes about me.
But it's back to work, and next day it seems business as usual, even though Andy's, feeling sorry for Miranda. She's talking to Nigel, and Nigel lets her know that he's leaving Runway. He is going to go work with James Holt, who has gotten some funding and is going to be expanding his label, and he's going to be the vice president. And Miranda knows about it. Miranda's the one who kind of put him up for the job. She's having dinner with Christian, and she's kind of defending Miranda at this point from him. He's kind of like one of these guys that's just kind of on the, he's involved with it, but he doesn't take it too seriously. And she's like, oh, if Miranda was a man, you'd be thinking differently about her. The thing I don't like about this and this movie, this is probably my least favorite part, is that she winds up going back to his hotel and sleeping with him. And I just think it's really out of character for her. I don't think she's completely over Nate at this point, and I think she's so wrapped up in what's going on. It just seems like a convenience for the story, which it probably is. But she finds out the next morning that there's this whole thing afoot that they are going to push Miranda out, and they're going to bring Jacqueline from Paris to New York and basically give her Miranda's job. And so Andy spends the day trying to warn Miranda, but every time she gets there, Miranda just kind of goes off in another direction. So there's a luncheon the next day, and this is where they are, going to announce all the changes, and they're making an announcement about James Holt's new label, and everybody is expecting, or at least Christian and Nigel and Andy are expecting that they're going to announce that Nigel is leaving Runway in order to go work with James Holt, but Miranda's the one making the announcement, and apparently she is playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers.
Runway and James Holt share many things in common, chief among them a commitment to excellence. And so, it should come as no surprise that when the time came for James to choose the new president of James Holt International, he chose from within the Runway family. And it's my great happiness today to announce to you all that that person is my friend and longtime esteemed colleague, Jacqueline Follet.
So she had set the whole thing up in the first place, and she knew what was going on, and she had made moves to make sure that it didn't happen. Christian is obviously very off-put. Nigel is obviously very, very stunned. But even still, Nigel is making like apologies for Miranda.
When the time is right, she'll pay me back.
You sure about that?
No. But I hope for the best.
And throughout this whole thing, we have to kind of wonder, like, who is Andy becoming? You know, how deep is she in this? You know, we talked about this earlier. It's like, why is she changing? It's like, is she really this deep into this whole thing that now she's making apologies for Miranda, like Nigel? She is going out of her way to jeopardize her blooming relationship with Christian in order to warn Miranda with confidential information that he had given her. And she's just really kind of seems to be falling into this whole thing. And so we wind up in a car with them, and they're leaving Paris. I guess they're heading to the airport. And Andy is basically trying to let Miranda know that, you know, she doesn't really approve of the way that she treated Nigel, because Miranda had said something like, I see a lot of me in you, thinking it was a compliment. And Andy pushes back, and she's like, no, I couldn't do what you did to Nigel. And Miranda has one more bomb to drop on her.
I couldn't do what you did to Nigel, Miranda. I couldn't do something like that.
You already did.
To Emily. That's not what I...
So Andy is kind of realizing that, you know, she's become what she beheld. She is turned into this thing that she does not want to be. And so Miranda gives her like this one last line of like, she's like, what if I don't want to live like that? And Miranda's like, everybody wants what we have. Everybody wants to be like us. And this is just kind of the last straw. And Andy decides that she is just going to leave. She's going to walk away. She's going to leave Runway. And so she winds up meeting back up with Nate. And Nate has told her that he took a job in Boston and he's moving to Boston. And they kind of make these kind of plans, like she'll go visit him. She's got a job interview hooked up in New York at a newspaper in New York. And so she goes and interviews there. And the guy who she's interviewing with is asking her about her time at Runway and letting her know that he has spoken.
The question is, Runway? You were there for less than a year. What the hell kind of a blip is that?
Learned a lot. In the end, though, I kind of screwed it up.
I called over there for a reference. Left word with some snooty girl. Next thing you know, I got a fax from Miranda Priestly herself, saying that of all the assistants she's ever had, you were by far her biggest disappointment. And if I don't hire you, I am an idiot. Must have done something right.
So she winds up getting the job at that place, I'm assuming, and then she's walking down the street in front of the Runway building and she sees Miranda leaving. But before that, I think it's before that, she makes a phone call. She calls Emily and she has one last thing she wants to ask Emily.
Thing is, I have all these clothes from Paris and I don't have any place to wear them, so I was wondering if you could take them off my hands.
Well, I don't know. It's a huge imposition. And I'll have to get them taken in. I mean, they'll drown me. But I suppose I could help you out. I will have Roy pick them up this afternoon.
Thanks, Em. I appreciate it. Good luck.
And I think Emily Blunt is absolutely brilliant in this moment. Like, the way her face changes so subtly when she realizes what Andy's doing, and then she pulls it together in a very British manner. It's just really great. And then, like I said, Andy sees Miranda leaving in her car, and they look at each other across the street, and Miranda kind of acts like she doesn't recognize her, but then when she gets in the car, there's a little bit of a smile. So the inference being is that she's kind of, low-key proud of Andy. And that's the end of The Devil Wears Prada. So the film opened June 30th, 2006. It opened up against Superman Returns, which is a film that we have done here. It had a huge marketing push. They cut a trailer that was basically a sizzle reel of all of Miranda's zingers, but also this is what they showed out to like theater owners and things like that. So it had a $41 million budget. It wound up making $27 million on opening weekend, 125 domestic, 200 international, for a total of $326 million on a $41 million budget. Not bad at all. It's got a 75 on Rotten Tomatoes. It's got a 62 on Metacritic. It's got a B on CineScore. Roger Ebert, 3.5 stars. He said that Streep never raises her voice. She speaks in a low, modulated, conversational tone, which is more terrifying than a scream. He hits the nail right on the head there. This was a character study in this type of power and this type of person. Meryl Streep won a Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Comedy or Musical, received her 14th Academy Award nomination for it. It got an Oscar nod for Best Costume Design, which makes sense considering the costume budget was reportedly over $1 million, and featured pieces from houses like Valentino and Chanel. So looking back at it, this is, The Devil Wears Prada, more than just a fashion movie. It's a movie about ambition and the complexity of female leadership and the choices we make to get to the top. So whether you're here for the fashion montages or Meryl's legendary cerulean monologue, it is a perfect piece of mid-2000s cinema. So that is it for The Devil Wears Prada. Perfect rewatch if you are interested in going to see the new movie when it comes out. So I would say absolutely do that. And we will catch you next time.